Hey, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss part 2 to my last video, which I'll link down below, where I spoke about essentially how to build a wardrobe from scratch. Now, in part 1, I really honed in on suits and different suit colors. And in this video, part 2, we're going to discuss dress shirts. Now, we're not only going to talk about different colors and styles that I recommend, but I'm going to get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty about how dress shirts are made. Now, also keep in mind what I'm about to discuss is more so for educational purposes and isn't something that you necessarily need to know or study whenever you're purchasing a custom shirt. But again, this is just for those that may be interested in how dress shirts are actually made. Now, when it comes to suits, pretty much everyone at this point is familiar with thread count, so super 110, 120, 130, so on and so forth. But when it comes to dress shirts, there are also certain things that kind of go into the actual fabrication of the shirt. Now, in any woven fabric, specifically dress shirts, you're going to have two sets of threads. This is a process what we call warp over weft. Now, warp is going to indicate the vertical threads that run lengthwise on the loom. Now, these warp threads that run vertically are going to be generally under great tension and are usually stronger and much straighter than the wefted threads. Now, the wefted threads, otherwise known as the filling, are going to be horizontal threads that run over and under the vertical threads. Now, these threads are generally going to be a little bit looser and are going to be a little bit more decorative in some cases. So again, warp is going to be vertical and weft is going to be horizontal. Now, of course, you might then be asking, why does this matter when it comes to dress shirts? The warp and weft arrangement are going to influence the fabric strength and durability. The warp yarns are usually finer and stronger, while the weft yarns can influence drape and texture as well as the softness and the structure of the shirt. Also keep in mind that a lot of different weave types like poplin, twill, and Oxford shirts are going to be heavily influenced by how the wefted yarns interweave with the warp yarns. For example, a poplin dress shirt is going to be a 1-to-1, meaning that it's a plain weave, usually made with a finer warp and a slightly thicker weft. Now, once again, this isn't something that you have to memorize or know off the top of your head. This is mostly, again, for educational purposes. Next up, let's talk about the weight of your dress shirts. Now, similar to suits, most dress shirts are going to be weighed in what we call grams per meter. So for example, a lightweight dress shirt will generally run on the low end, maybe around 90 grams per meter to about 130 grams per meter. A middleweight dress shirt will be about 130 grams to 170 grams per meter. And something on the heavier side would generally run about 170 grams to 200 grams or more. Most dress shirts that I see generally are going to be between about 105 or 110 to around 145 grams per meter. This is going to be, again, kind of that standard weight. If it goes up to 160 to 170, it'll still be fairly light, but you're starting to creep up more towards that heavier weight for shirts. Now, I will also add this caveat that similar to suits, if we're talking about the difference between a shirt that's 120 grams versus 125 grams, you're not going to notice the difference when you're wearing it. Now, of course, you will notice the difference when you're wearing a shirt that's 120 grams versus 220 grams. That's a big difference, but anything that's 130 versus 135 or 125 versus 133, you're really not going to notice the difference when you're wearing it. So again, as a quick recap, we have warp over weft. Warp is going to indicate the vertical strands. Weft is going to indicate the horizontal strands that are interlaced between the vertical strands. The reason this is important is because this is going to be a direct indication of fabric durability as well as the texture, such as poplin, twill, or Oxford. And then finally, similar to suits, your shirts are going to be weighed in grams per meter. Your lightweight shirts are going to be generally anywhere from 70 to 130 grams per meter. Middleweight, 130 to 170, and heavier shirts are going to be 170 to 200 and up. So I know some of you may have already been familiar with some of those terms like warp over weft, but I just wanted to throw that in there for those that maybe weren't as familiar, especially as we go into this next portion where we get into the colors as well as certain styles of dress shirts. So everyone knows that after you get your navy and gray suit, the first two shirts that you should get are white and light blue. Some other really nice colors and patterns that I recommend are number one, going to be any type of stripe. So some of my favorites are going to be Bengal stripe, pencil stripe shirts, really anything with a vertical pattern, because This does an amazing job of making you look a little bit more slim and streamlined, and also makes you look taller, which again, for most men is going to be a great advantage. Also, I recommend any type of graph check or some type of a small square pattern. This is another great way just to kind of get out of the mundane white and light blue shirts, incorporating a pattern or anything that's going to give a little bit more character to the outfit. Also, once you've kind of checked off those boxes of white and light blue dress shirts, I highly recommend looking at lavenders, pink, as well as potentially even some type of a chambray shirt. Now, the thing about chambray, it is typically going to be more of a casual shirt, but it's something that I really love, especially for summertime, as I think it looks amazing with or without the jacket. I think this is something that you can pair well with a casual suit, once again, like a linen suit or anything that's going to read a bit more on the casual side. Chambray is a great addition to your wardrobe. Now, going back to those lavenders and pinks, another way to kind of separate yourself, as well as with any type of pattern, would be to do what we call a contrast collar or a banker collar. Now, I personally love contrast collars. I wear them quite often. The reason I like them is I think, again, it just gives a little bit more of that visual aid to the outfit. And again, it's a sign of a custom shirt if that is something that you're interested in. Now, they do sell banker or contrast collars off the rack. It's just more common that you'll see this in a custom realm. Also, let me add, I get a lot of questions and emails about the shirts that I wear in my videos. This one that I'm wearing in particular today is what we call a one-piece collar. One-piece collars are meant to be worn without ties. Now, I do wear ties a lot, but during the summer, especially when it's extremely warm outside, I like to kind of go some days with a tie, some days without a tie. And when I'm not wearing a tie, I love these one-piece collar shirts. Now, I have worn them with a tie and they look just as great. They kind of have that semi-spread, almost a classic collar type of look, as they are a little bit more on the narrow side. But again, this is something that I wear often without a tie. Now, next up, kind of straying away from colors for a second, another pattern that I really enjoy is actually a herringbone shirt. Now, herringbone, as everyone knows, is a really common pattern, not only used in clothing, but also in homes, such as a herringbone floor or herringbone backsplash. But I love herringbone because it gives you that solid shirt while giving, again, kind of a visual aid, if you will, and gives a little bit more interest. I have a lot of gentlemen who will order white shirts, but they don't want that classic kind of standard flat finish, so we oftentimes look into doing a herringbone shirt. Also, I love things like herringbone because from a distance, they look solid, but as you get close and you're having those face-to-face interactions, they give kind of a little bit more of something to look at, if you will. So in conclusion, whenever you're purchasing a dress shirt, you mostly want to keep in mind the color as well as the texture of the shirt that you'd like. For example, twill versus a herringbone. Also, you want to keep in mind, hey, is this something that I want to keep all the same fabric? Do I want to do a contrast collar? Those are going to be some of the most important points. As far as weight, with dress shirts, there's not going to be a huge difference in weight between a shirt that weighs 130 grams versus 140 grams. They're pretty much going to feel the same. So I really hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you have any questions or thoughts on this subject, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.